You ever feel like no matter how much effort you put in, you're still behind? You're working hard, doing everything they told you, yet somehow life still feels like it's moving faster than you. You scroll through social media. Everyone's winning, right? Everyone's traveling, getting fit, falling in love, buying cars, starting businesses, and you're there wondering, what am I missing? What's the trick? Here's the truth. There is no trick. There's a mindset. And that mindset separates men who win from men who burn out. See, when you're in your 20s or 30s, it's easy to think winning means doing more hustle, more grinding, more proving. But that's exactly how most men lose. Because when you chase everything, you lose direction. When you try to please everyone, you lose identity. When you try to win everything, you lose peace. And no one tells you this. The world actually rewards the calm, not the chaotic. It rewards men who move with purpose, not panic. That's what Stoicism teaches, the art of emotional power, the ability to stay steady when everyone else is shaking. But think about it. Why do you feel anxious when you're not texting her? Why do you panic when someone ignores your message? Why do you feel like you're falling behind when you see someone else succeed? It's because you've been trained to measure your worth through reaction. You've been conditioned to believe progress equals movement, even if that movement is in circles. You've been taught to chase validation instead of building value. Here's what Stoicism says: stop chasing noise, control what's in your control, let go of everything else. Sounds simple, right? But it's not easy. Because your mind's addicted to control. You want things to happen now. You want people to notice you now. You want success now. And that's why most men in their 20s and 30s feel lost. Not because they're failing, but because they're fighting against time itself. The winners, they move differently. They don't chase, they attract. They don't beg, they build. They don't seek, they become. They know when to be present and when to disappear. They understand that absence isn't weakness, it's power, because space creates value, and when you stop trying to prove yourself every second, you finally start becoming the man who doesn't need to. So let me ask you something. What if your anxiety comes from needing constant results? What if your real strength starts when you stop chasing outcomes and start mastering yourself? What if your entire life changes, not by doing more, but by detaching from what doesn't serve you? Because once you learn detachment, real detachment, not fake coldness, you start to win. You win peace, you win control, you win power, and you win freedom from everything that ever made you feel small. By the end of this video, I'm going to show you how to use detachment like a weapon, not to play games, but to live with unshakable power. You'll see how absence, focus, and purpose can flip your life, your relationships, and your mind. You're not lost, man. You're just scattered. And after this, you'll finally know how to gather it all back. You ever notice how silence scares most people? Like when the messages stop, when no one calls, when the world suddenly gets quiet, your mind starts screaming. You start wondering, did I mess something up? Am I being forgotten? That panic right there? That's the trap that keeps most men weak. Because the truth is, most people can't handle stillness. They can't handle absence. They can't handle not being seen. And that's where the real battle begins. See, men in their 20s and 30s grow up thinking that to be valued, you must be visible. You have to post. You have to prove, you have to show progress every second, or people forget you. But that's not power, that's dependence. You're feeding off validation like oxygen. But ask yourself, how long can you keep performing for approval? How long can you keep chasing people who barely notice your effort? How long can you keep losing sleep over people who sleep peacefully without you? It's exhausting, isn't it? Because you're trying to win a race that never ends, a race to be seen. But the truth is, the men who actually win, they're not loud, they're not everywhere, they're not constantly seeking attention, they're moving in silence, building in private, improving when no one's watching. That's real power. Let me tell you something, detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's saying, I don't need to respond to everything to prove I exist. It's walking away from noise and walking into your own direction. You don't win by being more available, you win by being rare. And that's where scarcity comes in. When you stop showing up everywhere, people notice when you do. When you stop talking about what you'll do, your actions start echoing louder than your words. When you stop begging for attention, the world starts paying attention to you. But here's the deeper truth: detachment isn't about ignoring the world. It's about mastering your inner world first. Because what happens when you finally stop reacting to every little thing? You start seeing clearly. That girl who ignored you, you don't chase her. You start seeing her behavior for what it really is, a test of your composure. That friend who stopped texting, you don't spiral. You just understand not everyone deserves front row access to your life. That failure you keep replaying, you don't drown in it. You extract the lesson and move forward. That's detachment, not the absence of emotion, but the presence of control. And here's something most men don't realize. When you're detached, you gain something that can't be faked: emotional power. You stop being pulled by every mood, every person, every situation. You move because you choose to, not because you're pushed to. Think about it. If someone can make you angry, they control you. If someone can make you insecure, they own you. If someone's silence can ruin your peace, they have more power over you than you do. But when you master your emotions, when you learn to observe instead of react, you become unshakable. And people can feel that energy. They can sense that aura. It's calm, centered, grounded. It's not loud, but it's powerful. That's what women are drawn to. That's what bosses respect. That's what people remember, not your constant presence, but your calm dominance. So let me ask you something. What if you stopped chasing and started creating? What if instead of proving yourself to others, you started proving yourself to yourself? What if your silence wasn't weakness but strategy? Because once you understand that your absence holds just as much power as your presence, you'll stop begging to be noticed. You'll start choosing where your energy goes. That's the secret of Stoic detachment. It's not about running away from the world. It's about running toward your purpose. It's about becoming so focused, so aligned, that nothing and no one can pull you off course again. Ever notice how quick people are to react? Someone says something small, and boom, anger. Someone ignores them, panic. Someone gets ahead, jealousy. Most men today, they're not living, they're reacting. And that's the reason they can't win. Because when you react, you lose control. When you lose control, you lose power. And when you lose power, the world stops respecting you. But let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered why people get under your skin so easily? Why someone's silence suddenly feels like an attack? Why one rejection can crush your whole confidence? It's because you've been taught to tie your worth to things outside of you. Every compliment lifts you. Every criticism breaks you. You're floating between other people's opinions like a leaf in the wind. That's not strength, that's dependence. And dependence is where your peace dies. See, emotional mastery isn't about pretending nothing bothers you. It's about refusing to let emotions drive you. It's about sitting in discomfort, calmly. It's about feeling everything but choosing your response. Let me ask you something real. When was the last time you sat with your anger without acting on it? When was the last time you let silence stay silent without needing to fill it? When was the last time you didn't chase an answer, but simply observed the question? Because that's where the strong separate from the weak. The weak explode, the strong observe, the weak react to every situation, the strong respond only when necessary. You want to win in your 20s or 30s, master your calm, because calm men are dangerous, calm men are focused, calm men are unpredictable, and that's exactly why the world respects them. Think about it. When everyone else is panicking and you're still composed, calculating, you stand out. When everyone is gossiping and you're silent, thinking ahead, you stand out. When everyone's emotions are bouncing off walls and you're unmoved, people start wondering, what does he know that we don't? That's your aura. That's power that doesn't scream but whispers. Now I get it, it's not easy. The world provokes you daily. Social media thrives on reaction. Relationships test your patience. Money pressures your peace. But this is exactly why emotional mastery is rare, and why the men who have it win. You can't dominate a world you're emotionally enslaved to. Let's be honest, how many times have you said something out of anger and regretted it? How many times have you made a decision because you felt lonely and it cost you later? How many times have you lost opportunities because your emotions hijacked your logic? Every man has been there, but Stoicism teaches one thing: you don't need to stay there. Because power doesn't come from controlling others, it comes from controlling yourself. Once you master your emotions, you stop being predictable. You stop giving people access to your buttons. You stop letting circumstances dictate your behavior. That's where real confidence begins. Confidence isn't in the voice you raise, it's in the control you keep. It's when you could explode, but you stay composed. It's when you could beg, but you choose silence. It's when you could chase, but you stay grounded in your value. The world calls it detachment. I call it discipline. Because detachment isn't about being cold, it's about being centered. It's about realizing that your reactions are the doorways through which people enter and control your mind. Close those doors and you take your peace back. So next time someone ignores you or tries to test your ego, don't react. Smile. Let silence do the talking. Because silence from a man who's in control, that's the loudest response there is. And here's the twist. When you stop reacting, people start adjusting. Your calmness forces others to face themselves. Your peace becomes intimidating. Your stillness becomes power. That's emotional mastery. That's Stoic strength. Because when you can't be shaken, you can't be defeated. Let me ask you something that'll sting a little. When did you stop being dangerous? No, not violent, not reckless. I mean that raw, quiet danger that comes from knowing exactly who you are and where you're going. Most men in their 20s or 30s lose that edge. They used to wake up hungry, wild, ready to chase something bigger than themselves. Now, they scroll, they overthink, they doubt, they say they want success, but every move they make is built around fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. Tell me honestly, when was the last time you did something purely because you wanted it, not because your friends approved, not because a woman liked it, not because society expected it, but because it set your soul on fire? See, here's the truth. Most men never lose their potential. They just drown it under distractions, comfort, and approval. They live for reactions, not for results. And the sad part, they call it balance. But let's be clear, balance without direction is just laziness disguised as peace. You can't win at life if you're afraid of discomfort. Every goal, every dream, every purpose-driven man, all of them are built on the same foundation: controlled discomfort. That's what Stoicism really teaches, not to avoid pain, but to face it without letting it destroy your spirit. Because pain is not your enemy, distraction is. Failure is not your end, stagnation is. You're not supposed to live every day happy, you're supposed to live every day becoming. And here's where most men mess up. They wait to feel ready, they wait for confidence, for clarity, for some perfect moment. But the truth? You'll never be ready. You just start, you take action while scared, you move even when uncertain. That's how growth happens, through movement, not motivation. You think great men were fearless? No. They just moved anyway. Let's get brutally honest. If you're always waiting for the perfect time, you're addicted to safety, and safety kills ambition. A man's purpose doesn't live in comfort, it lives in chaos, in the moments where everything is unclear, yet he still chooses to keep walking. That's how you win. That's how you build aura, not by talking big, but by acting when it's hard, because purpose gives you presence, and presence makes you magnetic. People feel when a man's life has meaning, it's in his eyes, his silence, his energy. He doesn't chase validation, he attracts it. Not because he's better than anyone, but because he's deeply connected to something larger than approval. That's why Stoic men walk different. They don't waste energy explaining their worth. They show it through their consistency. Let me give you something to think about. When a man doesn't know his direction, even the smallest obstacle feels heavy. But when he has purpose, even storms become workouts. It's not about being emotionless, it's about being anchored. When life gets rough, purpose is what keeps your feet on the ground while everyone else gets swept away, and that's what makes you powerful. When you move through the chaos without needing the world to clap for you, that's strength. You become dangerous again, not because you're loud, but because you're certain. Every man in his 20s or 30s should burn this into his mind. You don't find your purpose by thinking, you find it by moving. Start something, fail at it, learn, adjust, keep going. Every failure reveals a direction. Every direction reveals your strength. But sitting still, that reveals nothing. So ask yourself right now, are you living with intention or are you living by reaction? Are you building your path or are you waiting for someone to hand it to you? Are you leading your life or just participating in it? Because life doesn't reward the man who waits, it rewards the man who acts. And when you combine that action with stoic calm, when you can move forward without fear and stand still without losing focus, that's when you become unstoppable. That's when your energy changes. That's when people start respecting you without knowing why. That's when women sense something different, something rare, because your attention is no longer desperate, it's directed. You've stopped seeking validation and started seeking greatness. That's what separates boys from men. That's how you win. Here's a question that should make you stop scrolling for a second. Why do some men seem to pull attention effortlessly while others have to beg for it? Think about it. There's always that one man who doesn't say much, yet when he walks into a room, people notice. He doesn't chase women, yet women chase his attention. He doesn't try to impress anyone, yet somehow everyone feels his presence. What's that thing he has? What gives him that silent power? Is it looks? Charisma? Money? No, it's scarcity. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most men have zero scarcity. They're everywhere, doing everything, talking all the time, reacting to every text, chasing every opportunity, giving everyone their time and attention, and in doing so, they drain their power completely. You can't be valuable when you're available to everyone. You can't be respected when your time is cheap. Scarcity is not about hiding, it's about filtering. It's about deciding where your energy goes and who deserves it. It's about making your attention earned, not assumed. And this is where most men fail. They think being nice means being always available. They think being ambitious means saying yes to every chance that comes their way. They think being connected means constantly being online, constantly responding, constantly engaging. But the truth? Every time you give away your focus to things that don't matter, you weaken your energy. Your focus is your value. Your attention is your currency. Your presence is your power. And when you spend those things carelessly, the world treats you the same way carelessly. You see, scarcity doesn't just make you look rare, it makes you rare. It trains you to value your own time, to choose solitude over noise, to sharpen your inner world instead of chasing the external one. You start to build a sense of calm dominance, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything. Because scarcity forces you to prioritize. You stop chasing women because your time is focused on purpose. You stop reacting emotionally because your peace is too valuable to waste. You stop trying to fit in because your uniqueness is your leverage. That's what happens when you understand scarcity as a strategy. And here's the kicker. When you become scarce, everything around you starts to move differently. Opportunities begin to flow toward you. People start respecting your boundaries instead of testing them. And women, they start wondering why they can't stop thinking about you. Because in a world where everyone is too available, the man who knows how to hold back becomes magnetic. Scarcity builds curiosity. Curiosity builds value, and value builds attraction. But this isn't about playing games. It's not about manipulation. It's about alignment, about matching your energy with what truly deserves it. Think about this. Would you hand a diamond to someone who doesn't even know its worth? Then why do you hand out your attention, your time, your presence to people who haven't earned it? You have to treat yourself like that diamond, rare, valuable, not for everyone. When you master scarcity, you stop being one of the many and become one of the few. You're no longer chasing validation, you create it. You're no longer seeking opportunities, they find you. You're no longer trying to impress, you inspire. That's the power of controlled absence. It doesn't make you cold, it makes you respected. Because true confidence isn't loud, it's selective. And the Stoic man knows this. He doesn't need to constantly show up to prove he exists. He lets his silence, his discipline, and his results speak for him. Every time you choose to say no to distractions, you say yes to power. Every time you step back, you increase your value. Every time you hold your energy instead of throwing it around, you multiply your impact. That's how you become the man everyone wants access to, but few can reach. You see, scarcity isn't about distance. It's about distinction. It's what separates the men who are noticed from the men who are needed. Because the man who's everywhere becomes forgettable, but the man who's rare, he becomes unforgettable. So here's the question you need to sit with. Where are you giving your energy too freely? Who has access to your peace that doesn't deserve it? And what would happen if, starting today, you became more selective about where your attention goes? Because that decision alone could change the entire trajectory of your life, your confidence, and your relationships. Scarcity is not weakness, it's strategy. It's not distance, it's direction. And when you master it, you stop chasing life, and life starts chasing you. Let me ask you something real quick. Why do some men completely fall apart when life hits them, while others stay calm, composed, even dangerous in their silence? Why do some men lose control over the smallest argument, while others face chaos and still keep their center? What makes a man powerful when everything around him is falling apart? It's not luck, it's not genetics, it's not arrogance, it's emotional control. And here's the truth that no one talks about. Emotional control isn't about feeling nothing. It's about being stronger than what you feel. Because emotions are like storms, they come fast, they shake everything. But if you don't know how to anchor yourself, they'll carry you away. Look around today. How many men are ruled by their emotions? They get ghosted and suddenly they spiral. They face rejection and their self-worth collapses. They get one message left on read, and they start overthinking every detail like it's the end of the world. That's not strength, that's emotional slavery. And yet this is where Stoicism shines brightest. The Stoic man doesn't deny his emotions, he disciplines them, he understands them, he studies them, and then he uses them without letting them use him. You want to know why emotional control is the highest form of attraction? Because calmness is rare, and whatever is rare becomes powerful. When you stay calm in moments where everyone else would panic, people feel your presence differently. It's like your energy says, "I'm not moved by what moves others." That's the kind of power that makes others adjust to you. Let's get deeper. When a man reacts emotionally, he gives his power away. He becomes predictable, easy to manipulate, easy to provoke. He's playing defense while the world plays offense. But when you stay composed, you flip the dynamic. Suddenly, you're the one who decides when and how to respond. You control the tempo. You control the room. You control yourself. And that's the part most men miss. When you master emotional control, you master response time. You don't jump into every argument. You don't explain yourself to people who've already made up their minds. You don't beg, chase, or prove. You observe. You learn to read the situation instead of reacting to it. You learn to think before you feel. And that, right there, separates the men who win quietly from the men who lose loudly. Because emotional control gives you leverage in every part of life. In relationships, it keeps you from overreacting. In business, it helps you make better decisions under pressure. In personal growth, it stops you from quitting when things get hard. That's why calmness is not weakness, it's command. And the moment you realize this, you stop trying to be liked and start being respected. See, women are deeply drawn to emotionally stable men, not because they're cold, but because they're safe. Because a calm man gives a woman what chaos never can: trust. When a man knows how to stay grounded during uncertainty, it tells her something primal. This man won't collapse when things get hard, and that's attractive, that's security, that's masculine energy in its purest form. But let me tell you the truth most men avoid. You can't fake emotional control. You can't pretend to be calm while your mind is at war. You can't act unbothered if you're secretly obsessed with validation. Control starts from within. It starts with awareness, knowing what triggers you and why. It starts with acceptance, not fighting your emotions, but understanding them. And then it moves into action, choosing not to let those emotions decide for you. That's how you win in silence. That's how you build a foundation that nothing external can shake. Because the truth is, you'll never stop facing storms. Life will keep testing you. But you get to choose whether you're the man who gets swept away by waves or the one who becomes the ocean itself. When you learn to regulate your emotions, you become unpredictable in the best way. No one knows what will trigger you because nothing does. You don't flinch, you don't chase, you don't collapse. You pause, you breathe, you act, and that pause, that single moment between emotion and reaction, that's where power lives. It's the same space that leaders, warriors, thinkers, and men of purpose operate from. They don't run from emotions, they lead them, and that's what you need to understand. Your emotions aren't your enemy, they're energy. But you have to decide, do you command them or do you serve them? Because the man who commands his emotions commands his destiny. The man who serves them becomes a puppet to every situation that touches him. So here's what I want you to remember. Emotional control isn't about becoming robotic, it's about becoming strategic. It's about responding like a king, not reacting like a servant. You stay calm, not because you're cold, but because you're clear. You don't explode, not because you don't care, but because you've outgrown chaos. And once you understand that, you'll start noticing how calmness gives you everything chasing never could: respect, peace, and power. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, remember this: silence is your sharpest weapon, stillness is your strongest flex, and the man who can stay calm in fire becomes the fire himself. Aura and presence, the silent language of power. You ever walk into a room and instantly feel who owns it without a word being spoken? No flexing, no noise, no fake confidence, just stillness and power. Why does that happen? Why do some men seem magnetic even when they say nothing? Why does one man's quiet presence turn heads while another's loud energy gets ignored? And more importantly, how can you build that kind of aura? The one that makes people respect you before they even know your name. That's what we're talking about here. Aura, not the mystical kind, the real, grounded, masculine kind that's built on stillness, self-control, and purpose. Here's the truth. Your aura isn't what you wear, or how you talk, or how many followers you have. Your aura is the energy that comes off you when your mind and emotions are aligned. It's the energy that says, I don't need to prove myself, because I already know who I am, and that's rare. Because most men today, especially in their 20s and 30s, don't move with grounded energy. They move with anxiety. They move with impatience. They walk into a room trying to impress everyone instead of commanding presence. You can feel it, the difference between a man who's centered and a man who's trying too hard to be noticed. One radiates confidence effortlessly, the other bleeds neediness through his tone, his body language, even his silence. Let's break it down. Your aura is a reflection of your inner frequency. If your mind is restless, your aura is chaotic. If your emotions are unstable, your aura feels unsafe. If your self-worth depends on validation, your aura feels needy. But when your mind is calm, your purpose is clear, and your emotions are disciplined, people feel that. They feel stability, they feel certainty, they feel respect without you asking for it. And that's the secret most men overlook. A strong aura doesn't chase attention, it attracts it. It doesn't demand validation, it commands respect. Because when your energy says "I'm good either way," people lean in. That's human psychology. Scarcity creates desire. If everyone's fighting for attention, the one man who doesn't need it becomes the most mysterious, the most magnetic. So the real question is, how do you build that kind of aura? It starts with detachment. Not coldness, not arrogance, clarity. When you're detached, you don't cling, you don't react to every emotion, every insult, every compliment. You hold your center. That's why Stoicism fits perfectly here. It teaches you to stop chasing outcomes and start controlling what's within your reach. Your aura grows every time you choose peace over panic, every time you walk away instead of over-explaining, every time you stay silent when your ego wants to speak. People feel that. They might not be able to explain it, but they feel it. And that's why the Stoic man's presence is powerful, because he's rare. Let me give you something practical. When you walk into a room, don't rush, breathe. Move slower than the environment around you. Keep your shoulders relaxed, your eyes calm, your posture upright. You're not trying to take space, you already own it. Speak less, but when you do, make every word mean something. Don't overshare, don't over-explain. Let people fill in the blanks about you. That's where mystery lives, because mystery is not about hiding, it's about revealing slowly. It's about giving people just enough to stay curious. And here's another truth. Your aura gets destroyed the moment you try to impress. When you try to prove your worth, you're silently saying, "I don't believe I have it yet." Confidence doesn't prove, it expresses, and that expression comes from self-approval, not social approval. So start paying attention to your own energy. Ask yourself, what do I project when I enter a space? Is it anxiety or assurance? Is it neediness or neutrality? Is it tension or tranquility? Because people mirror what you project. If you're tense, they'll treat you cautiously. If you're calm, they'll trust you. If you're centered, they'll respect you. This is why aura isn't built overnight. It's built every single time you choose to live from inner stillness instead of outer noise. Every time you reject distractions and focus on your purpose. Every time you replace reaction with reflection. And when you do this consistently, something magical happens. You stop chasing validation. You stop fearing rejection. You stop begging for attention. You become the attention. People start wondering about you. They notice how calm you are, how focused you are, how unaffected you are. And that's the point. You've turned into a walking paradox. Peaceful but powerful. That's what a man with aura feels like. Not desperate, not arrogant, just grounded. He walks with direction, not desperation. He lives with meaning, not confusion. He moves with purpose, not noise. And when you master that, everything around you changes. Women respect your silence, men notice your energy, and opportunities flow toward you instead of you running toward them. That's not magic, that's alignment. That's the reward of being centered when everyone else is scattered. So remember this, aura isn't something you wear, it's something you become. It's not built in your style, it's built in your silence. And when you learn to master that stillness, you don't chase power, you embody it. The power of purpose. Why men without direction always lose anti-calm. Ever notice how lost most men look today? Not just confused but drifting. Waking up every morning, scrolling, rushing, working, but not living. They talk about success, they talk about peace, they talk about purpose, but inside they feel this quiet frustration like something's missing. So let me ask you this, what happens when a man has no direction? What happens when his life becomes a series of reactions instead of intentions? What happens when he chases women, money or validation, but forgets to chase himself? You know what happens? He becomes weak. Not physically, spiritually, emotionally, because the world doesn't crush a man by beating him, it crushes him by distracting him. And when a man loses his focus, he loses everything. That's the hidden war no one talks about. Most men in their 20s and 30s are not lazy, they're misdirected. They have energy, ambition, drive, but it's scattered. They waste it on temporary pleasure instead of permanent progress. They chase women who don't respect them. They chase trends that don't matter. They chase shortcuts that don't last, and then they wonder why peace feels impossible. See, the Stoics understood something powerful. Peace is the reward of purpose, not distraction, not indulgence, not constant pleasure. Purpose gives your suffering meaning. Purpose turns chaos into clarity. Purpose makes pain productive. You want to win in your 20s and 30s? Then stop asking, what should I get? Start asking, what should I become? Because here's a hard truth. If you don't build something for yourself, you'll end up building for someone else. If you don't decide who you are, the world will decide it for you. And the world doesn't care about your peace, it only cares about your participation. Most men today don't even realize they're being trained to lose. They're told to always be available, to always say yes, to always be reachable, flexible, agreeable. And then they wonder why no one respects them. You can't be a man of purpose if you're always accessible. Purpose requires boundaries. It requires focus. It requires saying no to things that pull you away from your mission. That's where detachment becomes powerful again. You're not cold, you're selective. You're not ignoring people, you're prioritizing your mission. And when your mission becomes your anchor, you stop being tossed around by every emotional wave. You stop chasing relationships that drain you. You stop fighting for attention that distracts you. You stop living like every moment needs to be entertaining. You begin to build, and when you start building, whether it's your body, your business, your craft, or your discipline, something inside you shifts. You start to feel real confidence. Not the fake kind that needs validation, but the grounded kind that comes from consistency. You start to move different. You talk less, work more. You seek less approval, chase more mastery. And here's what's beautiful. When a man locks into his purpose, everything else starts aligning naturally. Women notice. Opportunities appear. Energy increases. Why? Because you finally look alive. You're not floating anymore. You're driven. People can sense when a man has direction. It's magnetic. Because 90% of the world is lost, so when you're not, it shows. When you walk with purpose, people respect your silence more than they respect another man's noise. When you focus on your mission, your absence becomes powerful. It creates curiosity, not confusion. That's the paradox of purpose. When you stop chasing, you start attracting. When you stop explaining, you start influencing. When you stop proving, you start embodying. Now let's get practical for a second. How do you find your purpose if you don't know where to start? It's simple. Start with responsibility. Look around and ask, what in my life could be better if I took full responsibility for it? That's where purpose hides, in the problems you avoid, in the skills you haven't mastered, in the habits you keep promising to fix one day. Start there. Build small disciplines. Be so committed to growth that people question your silence. Be so consistent that your energy becomes predictable. Be so focused that your absence feels mysterious. And slowly that purpose becomes your identity. It's not a goal anymore. It's who you are. It's in how you walk, how you think, how you decide. When you live this way, you no longer compete. You outlast. Because men who have purpose don't need attention. They build legacies. They don't need to be loud. They let their results speak. They don't need to chase. They create gravity. And here's the truth most people won't tell you. Purpose doesn't give you comfort. It gives you clarity, and clarity gives you power. The moment you stop asking for easy days and start asking for meaningful ones, you separate yourself from 99% of men your age. You stop drifting, you start driving. And you realize you were never losing. You were just focused on the wrong game. Because the real win isn't about having more, it's about becoming more. The world bows to the man who builds himself. So in your 20s or 30s, forget chasing shortcuts, forget chasing people. Chase your purpose like your life depends on it, because it does. Everything you want, respect, love, peace, power, it all starts when you know what you're building and why. That's how you win, not by being perfect, but by being directional. Because a man with direction can walk through hell calmly and still come out unshaken. The silent strength, how emotional discipline turns chaos into power. Have you ever wondered why some men never lose control, no matter what happens, why they can get insulted, betrayed or tested and still respond with calm precision? Why, when others are shouting, they're silent, and when others panic, they think clearly? What makes them so composed? What gives them that steady presence that no one can shake? And more importantly, why do so few men ever reach that level? Let's be honest, most men today are emotionally reactive. One comment, one rejection, one failure, one woman walking away, and their whole energy collapses. It's not that they're weak, it's that they were never trained to master their emotions. They were told to express more, feel more, open up more, but no one told them the truth. You don't win by expressing every emotion, you win by mastering the ones that control you. Because when your emotions run you, your direction disappears. You react instead of respond. You chase instead of choose. You panic instead of plan. That's the silent epidemic among men in their 20s and 30s. They've built strength in their bodies but not in their nervous system. They can lift weights but can't lift their emotions. They can grind for goals but crumble under pressure, and that's not because they're not capable. It's because no one ever taught them that the real game isn't outside, it's inside. Think about it. How many decisions in your life were made because you were emotional, not logical? How many times have you texted when you should have stayed silent? How many times have you reacted to something small and destroyed something big? Every time that happens, you lose power, not because of the event, but because of your reaction. The Stoics knew this long before modern psychology did. They believed that the man who conquers himself is stronger than the man who conquers cities. Why? Because if you can control your emotions, you control your outcomes. Let's get brutally real here. You don't lose women because you're not attractive. You lose them because you become emotional when tested. You don't lose opportunities because you're not smart. You lose them because you lose focus under stress. You don't lose peace because life is unfair. You lose it because you haven't yet mastered the art of emotional neutrality. Neutrality, that's the hidden key. It's not suppression, it's containment. You're not running away from your emotions, you're redirecting them. When anger rises, you use it as fuel. When sadness comes, you convert it into awareness. When fear whispers, you use it to prepare. Every emotion becomes an asset, not an enemy. That's what Stoic discipline really means. You don't deny your emotions, you command them. You train yourself to feel deeply, but react wisely. Because your emotions are messengers, not masters. The average man lets his emotions dictate his actions. The Stoic man lets his actions discipline his emotions. And here's the truth most people avoid. Emotional discipline isn't built when things are easy. It's built when everything goes wrong and you refuse to break character. It's built when you get rejected and don't beg, when you're insulted and don't defend, when you fail and don't quit. Each moment of restraint adds one more layer to your strength. You start to notice that chaos doesn't shake you anymore, it sharpens you. Your silence becomes more intimidating than someone else's anger. Your calm becomes contagious. This is why true power is quiet, because when you can stay composed, everyone else's noise becomes your advantage. Think about it. In business, in relationships, in life, who wins? The one who reacts first, or the one who observes patiently and strikes when ready? Always the latter, always the calm one. Because calm is not weakness, it's timing, and timing is everything. You start to realize you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to shout. over-explain, or chase validation. You just need to understand that every emotion you control is one more weapon you own. Now let's translate this into practical action. How do you build emotional discipline? Start with response delays. When something triggers you, pause, count to 5, breathe, think. Your mind clears in those few seconds. You shift from reacting to responding. Next, practice detachment from outcomes. When you do something, do it with excellence, but don't depend on the result for peace. Peace comes from the act, not the applause. And third, embrace discomfort regularly. Cold showers, workouts, fasting, solitude, all of these are not trends, they're training grounds. Every time you choose discomfort, you're teaching your nervous system to stay calm when others panic. This is emotional muscle, and once it's built, no one can take it from you. Because here's the truth, the world is not designed to reward the loud, it's designed to reward the composed. Women respect it, employers notice it, competitors fear it. The man who can stay calm under pressure becomes unpredictable, and unpredictability is power. When you don't react emotionally, people lose control over you. They can't manipulate you, guilt you, or bait you. You become untouchable, not because you're cold, but because you're centered. That's the mark of true emotional mastery, not ignoring emotions, but guiding them, not pretending to be strong, but being too grounded to be moved. So remember this, your emotions are like wild horses. If you let them run loose, they'll destroy everything in your path. But if you learn to ride them, they'll carry you farther than you ever imagined. Because power isn't about having no emotions, it's about leading them. And when you do, you stop being a slave to chaos. You become the calm inside the chaos, and that's when the world starts to bend around your will.